speaking about music, culture, politics. And the first guest that I'd like to invite onto the stage, someone who's got quite a bio here. I had no idea you had done all of these things, Maji, is Mr. Julius Ondijo Owino, a.k.a. MajiMaji, who we've just seen in the documentary. He's a media manager and a founder with 12 years of experience at Ghetto Radio, and that's an outfit for mass communication through radio, social media, and visual production. He's a champion of transformation, of life transformation, community and people, development through media, and he has also launched the MajiMaji Trust. And as you heard, he's also running to be a member of parliament, an independent member of parliament in Seme constituency in Western Kenya. I'd like to invite you on stage now, Maji. Let's give him a round of applause as he comes up. Next up is Miss Joy Muthoni. She's also a Kenyan environmental activist and a human rights defender, also having run for a political post. She has been involved in community protections and sustainability services since 2010. She focuses on environment protection of public utilities and spaces. She also ran, as I had mentioned, to be a member of county assembly twice, in 2017 and in this current election, I think during the nomination process in 2022. And she's also the founder, the vice chair of Empower Youth Foundation since 2014, and the founder of Stay Alive Kenya, which focuses on youth empowerment and political engagement. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give her a round of applause as she makes her way to the stage. And finally, and this was interesting to me, I found out a few things about her yesterday. Dr. Joyce Nyairo is an independent researcher who does memory work with Santuri Media and enjoys being a ghostwriter of biographies where she is not, when she's not on Twitter, trying to unpack the roots and routes of Kenyan cultural trends. She has published numerous opinion pieces in the daily press, as well as a host of academic papers in international peer-reviewed journals. And one of Dr. Nyairo's most widely read publications is titled Popular Music, Popular Politics, Unbwogable, and the Idioms of Freedom in Kenya Popular Music, which was written with James Ogude. Let's give her a round of applause. Now, we understand as Africa Uncensored that we live in an environment where disinformation, misinformation, fake news is with us and it's part of us on a daily basis. And since 2019, apart from the work that we've been doing in our documentaries, we decided to be intentional about fact-checking, debunking fake news, misinformation, and disinformation. And a big part of this show, and it'll be a big part of this show going forward, is driven by our young fact-checking team at Piga Firimbi, two of whom are here this evening. I'll invite them up on stage, Nyakerari Omari and Tracy Bonareri. Guys, let's give them a round of applause. This is their first time on any sort of television. They've done lots of work behind the scenes, of course, so let's give them a bit more support as they make their way to the stage. And before we get started with everything, Maji, I have a question for you. And the question is, I was reading Dr. Nyairo's paper on Unbwogable, and there was a bit of a controversy there, a bit of a question there that I'd like for you to fact check before I take it to Tracy and Nyakerario to do so, which was, you had intended for this song to be like the end, as we heard in the documentary. But one of the people who produced the song for you, Ted Josiah, says that in that political moment, they felt like that was the reason why you created the song. So was it political, or was it just an expression? I want you to answer that question once I'm done speaking to Nyakerario and Tracy. So, like I said, folks, fact-checking, big part of our show, and will be going forward. And these two young ladies, as well as a team from Piga Firimbi, are going to be helping us get through that. So Tracy, this week's been a big week for Kenyan politics, right? So as we head towards, now we're essentially a month away from August the 9th. But what's been big in terms of fake news this week in terms of politics, something that you might have seen?
It's interesting because what I saw this week, I actually saw yesterday. Because in this era where information is shared across various platforms, it's very easy for someone to come up with something and purport or say it's from a certain media station or a certain outfit. So this one was an image I saw on Twitter, purportedly a front page of yesterday's issue of the Star newspaper. And the headline read, and I quote, the IEBC chairman, Wafula Chebukati, and 2 commissioners, who are not mentioned, received hefty kickbacks amounting to $3 million to award the tender to print the ballot papers to the farm situated in Greece.
Lycos.
Inform, yes. So that really caught my eye.
So did you do? So she did a great fact check on it. You should check it out on our website, Piga Firimbi. We'll be coming back to that, and I'll ask you a few things about that. Nyakirario, the part of the show, a big part of the show that we're producing now, is on helping people who are out there on socials or out there offline develop the tools for being able to spot fake news. So what do you have planned for us today?
So tonight, we'll go over digital cards, and it's one thing that I have noted on the internet. So it comes as a social media post, a tweet, a Facebook post, which imitates the logo of a media company or the United Nations, whichever, any legitimate, sorry about that, any legitimate organization is imitated, and there are claims that are shared and which are wrong. So today we look at how people create digital cards and how we can counter that.
All right.
Yes, thank you.
All right, thanks a lot. So if you guys have seen anything from The Nation or from Kenyans that claim that John Allen has a Range Rover, it's fake. I have 2, all right? So Maji, I want to start with you, all right? That question. I mean, for anybody who, and again, pardon to the Gen Zs who are in the audience, who might not have heard the song when they were coming of age, but Unbwogable was that song for us, right? It was a coming of age song, not just in terms of age, tulikuwa tunapata my idea at that time, but also in terms of the politics of the country. And every time I heard the song, I knew that it was written for the opposition. But there seems to be a bit of controversy about that. What's the real story?
It's great to be here. And I would also say I'm very much surprised. I'm watching this for the first day. I thought it was just a simple interview, but congratulations. Now, I wish my brother Gidi was here. The song was created at a very dingy place in Dandora. We were very, very, very frustrated as 2 people who had a hit song out, but we couldn't find our way through into our future. And I remember, although we were talented, while in Dandora, we sang to save our lives. We wanted better life, and we thought, and we knew it was through our talent as music that would add value into where we wanted to head to. But it was not happening. There were quite some bottlenecks. I'm not afraid to say some bottlenecks were because of where we were from. So it is assumed when you're from the ghetto, you might not know so much. You're not enlightened. You don't have enough information. So some advantages can be taken over you, and that happened. So after such a massive hit song, Ting Badimalo, then there's corporates involved.
Can I just do a quick poll?
Yeah.
Does anybody here know the lyrics to Ting Badimalo?
Okay, I promise to sing after all this event for just for us all. Anything I have in my head, I'll sing it.
Yeah.
So we get back to Dandora. Life is the same. No more shows. No nothing. Gidi is trying to get to college. there's no fee. I'm trying to find my way out to college, there's no fee. And now you have this all attention onto you. By then, there were very few artists. There was Hardstone, there was Poxy Pressure. You could count us.
Wikimosh.
No, he was not there yet.
That was even
not
before
yet.
that.
So now you're not making it, but the community thinks you're well off, you're okay. So that frustration. So that's when Unbwogable comes in, like, what's happening? So then we speak, we talk, we take something, you know. And then at the high of the moment, Unbwogable checks in. We must make it.
Yeah.
So Unbwogable was capturing our frustration.
Nothing to do with politics.
Nothing to do, totally nothing to do with politics.
You've heard about the intention of the song. The song was really just meant to speak to the frustrations that Gidi and Maji were going through at that time. But it captured the mood, it captured the spirit of a pivotal election. We're at another pivotal point today, right? Where we have an election that's transitional. Some would say even a contest that pits class, you know, we're talking class politics now. What do you make of the spontaneity of Unbwogable and how it captured the emotion and the spirit of that time versus the intention with which artists are now creating songs for politics, as you saw Ben Githaya with his Tano Tena song? What do you make of the differences? And is there something to be said about music or art serving politics or politics serving art?
Yeah, thank you. That's a really difficult question. But first of all, congratulations. This is a great documentary. I love it because you tell a story that, you know, very easily gets forgotten. For some of us, it's just 20 years ago. We remember it like it's yesterday. But for other people, it's completely unknown. So, you know, it's incredible that you've done this. I was also just thinking as I watched it, I really didn't believe it's been over, 19 or 18 years since I published that paper. Yeah. Academics are rarely ever ahead of the arts, so this is unusual. But, you know, to your question, I think, first of all, the story that Maji has just told, and which Gidi and Maji told me on the 6th of May, 2003. I remember it so clearly. We were sitting at the Norfolk, and, you know, you could see their sincerity when they tell the story of their frustration, when they told the story of how they were getting ready to get on stage at the Zanzibar International Film Festival the previous year, and, you know, just feeling they couldn't do it. They didn't feel they had the confidence, and they started this chant just to boost themselves. Yeah, I'm Unbwogable. You know, and so this is the power. I absolutely agree with Maji, and I agree with something that Eric Musyoka says in that documentary. And I remember when I interviewed Gidi and Maji way back then, Maji said something about why that song resonated. Remember, the song is largely in Doluo, but it carried people across, the ethnic divide. And what Maji said at the time, I loved the words you used. He said, our vocal prowess. Do you remember that? Yeah. And even the few clips you see there, you hear it in their voices. It's actually about them. Now, what made it cut across, even for generations, enough for my then 64-year-old mother to ask, what are they saying about Tom Mboya? Mm-hmm. You see, when they did the roll call of greats, they were able to achieve what Sipangwingwi has not achieved. Yeah. You can't cross the generational line because you make it a very kind of private conversation in a lingo that only people of a certain age set understand. So they were able to break through because of some of the features of that song. And one of the key features of that song is precisely that roll call of people they identify as great, and even the audacity with which they included Okach Bigi and Julie Dunia Mbaya. And that was part of also their aspiration, saying, you know, musicians may not be thought of as worthwhile people, but we put them up there on the pantheon of people who have done something for this country. Yeah. So the question you're raising is around this situation now in which it would appear that musicians can only break through if they align themselves to politicians, that should worry us. This is an example of, absolute co-option and capture. And you saw it very recently with a certain young comedian who did a small TikTok video. Next thing you knew, he was recording something and is part of a music video for a political aspirant. That's really unfortunate, because what we're saying is, unless you identify with a politician, you're not going to get your break. So what that tells us is we have to go back to the politics in the music industry. Why isn't the industry working for musicians? So when we talk about the relationships between music and politics, let's also talk about the politics in the music industry. Let's not forget that, okay? I know that's not what we intended to do today, but ultimately, we're not going to solve the problem that we are seeing with politicians co-opting musicians. And let's also separate things. I think when you look at Unbwogable or even Mabataru, these are, in a sense, I would categorize them as protest songs, whereas the political songs are these praise things you are seeing. There's no difference between, what Ben Gidai does later. There's no difference between Tano Tena and those Nyayo songs, those Nyayo era songs, Fuata Nyayo. There's no difference, because they're singing the praises of an individual. These are not political anthems. They don't sing about me and you and the problems that we have. The reason we identified with Unbwogable was because we had been tired of the oppression of the Moi years. We had been tired of lacking a space within which to talk. And their audacity is what we embraced. Their invincibility is what we embraced.
Joy, I want to bring you into this because Dr. Nyairo raises something that I think Maji had also pointed to, that when you were singing about, your frustrations as a young person, those same young frustrations are with us today in the lives of young people across Nairobi, across Kenya. Those same things that they'd like to express, and the talents that you had spoken of, that young TikToker, because his backstory is that he was out of a job, he had nothing to do. This was just a way to express himself, and all of a sudden he becomes captured, in a sense, by a political campaign. I want to ask the same question that Dr. Nyairo raised, and I think Eric Musyoka raised in the documentary. Are politicians our celebrities? And if they're our celebrities, are we wrong for critiquing them for using young people in the manner that they have?
Thank you, John. And thank you for this opportunity to express ourselves here and also share our take about the country so far, where it is politically, and also in the world of industry of music and talents. So far, I'll personally go straight to the media, the world you are in, according to the question you've just asked me. When you look at media in our country so far, 80% of what they bring to our attention every single day is about politics in this country, nothing more. Maybe there's something going on somewhere that is good enough for the youth, but they won't bring that. That will just be a by the way. Maybe it will be shared on the Facebook or any social media platform. But when it comes to a certain politician being somewhere, just a political rally, that must be on the media station. I'll give you an example, a very good example that happened to me in 2017 when police attacked a certain village in my area. They went there and tear gassed the people. People called me. They told me, Joy, you're here doing what? Campaign, and we are dying in our area. What's going on? They told me, well, they've been tear gassed and the youth have been arrested. When I arrived there, there's a mama who had passed on in that area looking for water. She was just crossing over a road called Kangundu Road so that she may access water in a place called Mole. Then an accident happened and she passed. So the people demonstrated and they burnt the lorry. The police came, they didn't care about that. They just tear gassed the youth, the whole area. Remember, there's no water, and they've been tear gassed. All the mamas are outside trying to access air, oxygen, so that they may stop, maybe, let's say, what can I use?
Hypertension.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So
what happened next, I called the OCS and told them to stop that. So he called the policemen and told them to stop arresting the youth. But those who had been arrested, I went and rescued them. I called some media personalities from a certain media station, and they told me they're coming. When they arrived in at Jogoo, they came across a big politician who was doing a campaign rally. They stopped by there. Instead of coming to my place to bring out the story that's going on there, which is very huge, just lack of water has caused someone's death. They haven't come there. They passed by Jogoo and told me, I've sent somebody else to come and bring up that story. I'm going to get back Joy. And they never came.
I have a follow-up question for you, Joy. And I'd extend the same question to you, Dr. Nyairo, and to you, Maji. Yes, there is an obsession with politics in the media. There is an obsession with how we spend our time and our lives as politicians. But you're entering the ring, or you've tried to enter the ring as well, right? I'd ask you why. Why then? If the politician is the celebrity and we focus so much attention, sometimes even in terms of praise, why then throw your hat in a political ring? And the question I have for you, Dr. Nyairo and Maji, is it seems sometimes like young people, it's very easy to be able to manipulate them, especially as politicians and at this time, at this very sensitive time.
Why am I joining the political industry in this country, the political world? Simple. It's the most powerful sector in this country. I've been in the civil world. I've tried helping the community. I've done my best. But with my resources, or where I can, it reaches a point where you get a wall, where you cannot cross over to help the community. You just need a politician. You just need the hand of the government to get into that world. What happens when you meet a politician who's not willing to help the people? You have to get into that industry.
Yeah, I think, Joy has said it very well, really. We're talking about the bottlenecks that exist for young people advancing. She's talking from the point of view of finding solutions to those problems. But the other side of it, of course, is that, young people, and this is deliberate, you, as a politician, as a person in power, you fail the system to the extent that people do not have the freedom. And let's define that freedom a little bit, because freedom, as I like to say, it's not a continuous state of being. It comes in moments. So when Gidi and Maji were singing in 2002, the thing we were yearning for was freedom of expression. Kibaki came to power, the opening up of the airwaves, the internet, and so on, and suddenly now you can be going to work in the morning in your matatu, you dial into some radio show, you insult the president, his wife, and children, and you get to work and get home in the evening, nobody arrests you. So at that point, we had achieved that kind of freedom. Yeah. But what about the freedom that allows you to speak because you're sure you can feed your family today and tomorrow? You take away people's capacity to have access to better education, have access to health, have access to social security. If you take that away, then you control them. And this is the kind of thing that we're seeing for young people now, so that a young person, one of the most cushy jobs in this moment of the election is for you to be somebody who assembles crowds. You get paid, rent a crowd. Yeah. Your job is to go and get the crowd. It's control.
Okay. Yeah, I'd like to differ a bit from the statement that you've said, obsession with politics. It can be researched. I don't think the youth are obsessed with politics. In fact, the people who are not interested in politics so much, unless it's taking them to school or getting them jobs, are the youth. It is the politicians who are obsessed with the youth because they want to use them. So they ensure they are not employed, they ensure they are desperate, they ensure they are frustrated, because at that age is when they view their productivity in an oligarch system. So they're not interested to empower the youth per se because of the politics. they know every 5 years, if the youth are not used for their purpose, which is guided democracy, then they don't need them. Mm-hmm. So they have to keep them like that. So in that sense, I'm speaking from my experience. I would encourage the youth to be obsessed with politics, objectively, because who is a youth? They're either in college, they're either in late high school, they're either looking for meaningful employment. And this is what they don't have. Yeah. Yet we have very good policies that could change the life of the youths, but they are not implemented again by the oligarchs who control democracy, who don't want them to get into jobs. And if you look at this thing statistically, you find like the current retirement statistic says 20,300 people retire each day from parastatal and government positions. Why can they employ directly 20,300 youth every year?
Yeah.
So it's a deliberate system. So it is the politician who is obsessed with the youthful energy to put him into power. Mm-hmm. And the politician will not allow an objective youth to ascend to power unless the youth bends into the oligarch system.
That's an interesting point, and I want to ask that from the point of view of your own experience. So
yes.
If you follow MajiMaji on any of his socials, a couple of months back you'll have seen a really moving short clip of an elderly woman in Seme giving him a hug and almost, commiserating with you after you weren't successful in a nomination process. Is
Yes.
that the oligarchy that you are talking about, or were you just unfortunate in terms of not being able to, win against your competitor?
No, I was not unfortunate. There was no election.
It
was a direct ticket.
Every politician says that. It's like prisoners who are in prison. Every prisoner is innocent.
No. This is a very separate issue.
Okay.
It's like us saying tomorrow there'll be a talent show to pick the best artist. And then tomorrow we announce there's no talent show. We have picked on Alan Namu. Yet everybody who came thought he could be better than Alan Namu. So he's avoiding a situation where Alan Namu is put to a competition. So that is what happened. If we had gone for an election, whether rigged or not, you can consider and say, maybe there are a few things I didn't do, or maybe I need to fight better, but there was no election.
Yeah.
Now, what I think pained the lady, she's not even my mother, but now she's my democratic mother because her tears was she has seen what I've done. Yeah, in terms of education, in terms of farming, in terms of widows, in terms of what happens in the rural setup. But the pain of not even casting your vote, that was the issue. And then she was disabled. That's the story that was not there. Now she lives about 4 kilometers from the polling station. And she moved with her crutches to the polling station and she could not vote in a party nomination. So that's what I defined as an oligarch system. A few 4 people interested in what happens to the people, and then they know the power of a party. So when this happens, then you have to go with what the party says. That is what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that is really what happened. It's not... my experience tells me Kenyan democracy is a bit still guided.
Yeah.
It's not power to the people. It's a few people. When democracy works for them, it is good. When it doesn't, they guide it. They guide it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think, Joy, you had a similar experience as well. I'll give you an opportunity to speak, but there's one thing that I'd like to get into before you speak, Joy, and I'd like your responses on this. And before I do that, if anybody in the audience has questions, we'll take about 4 or 5 of them. So just get ready with your questions, and then we'll come to you. There'll be some mics that'll be running up and down the aisles. So get ready with your questions. My question for you, starting with you, Dr. Nyairo, is, Maji mentioned that politicians are obsessed with the youth. The youth are not interested in politics. But perhaps it's not so much that they're not interested in politics, but in the way that politics manifests itself in Kenya. I'll give you an example. And really, pardon me if I butcher this, but I want to read the lyrics of a really popular song. Cheki fala mekam na mezuba, na cheki ati Subaru ya mambaru mekam na imeja. Right? Do we know the song? Right? What that's talking about is essentially police violence, at least from the point of view that I'm saying. And police violence is a political subject. So how do young people start to get politicians to actually listen to the politics that it is that they are experiencing or they want to engage with, and make that part of the wider national political agenda?
If I understand your question, you're asking, how do youth gain access at these tables where decisions are made? And it's a good question because, the conversation we've been having here is about how young people are turned into puppets, if at all they want to be heard. They must be used in that sense. But how can they flip that?
Yeah.
And remember, we keep talking about the youth bulge. So they have the numbers, but they don't really have the voice. Yeah? And part of what we are saying is, one of the reasons they don't have the voice, of course, is because they don't have the economic might. They don't have access to what would secure them at that level. How can they do that? How can they, change that? I think that it is a difficult thing to say you're putting the onus of all of that on the youth. I think that we have to continue to create the pressure on those who, for example, run political parties to be inclusive of young people. Because if we ask young people, for example, if we ask the youth to start a youth party, it's going to be difficult for them to advance at many levels because it requires capital. Yeah? And at that point, and if you're asking them to be honest about where they source the capital, otherwise they'll become captives of, forms of money that we don't really want to talk about here. It has something to do with laundry. But we don't want them to be using that kind of money. We want them to be using honest money. Where is the honest money? Are there venture capitalists? Are there techpreneurs who are interested in investing in a youth party? So a youth party would definitely be one way. But like I said, it has its technical difficulties. There are things that we can sit and think about. How do we actually fund and get on its feet a youth party? Will we then end up accusing them of excluding other numbers? But maybe then their strength would be to make sure that inclusion in other areas, disability, gender, and so on, is very, very powerful so that ageism, is something that they can, quote unquote, get away with. Does that make any sense?
It does. Joy, you attempted to vie in Komarok, it was, in 2017. You also tried in 2022. Number one, was your experience like Maji's? Were you locked out of the system? And number two, you're part of a number of youth movements, some of which that you've also founded. What's the challenge and where are the opportunities in building movements that can bring young people into the fold, into the, onto the decision-making table? What's the challenge there?
Number one, when it comes to, let me start, before I go to the political world, let me start with the civil society. My experience in civil society has been more than the political side. So we come up with the organizations to empower the youth and make them more informed to be able to run their own world, to improve this country in one or another. But the problem mostly comes with the government. The other day, it was made much more difficult to open an organization. I think in the year 2016, from the year 2016, to just open an organization. While other countries are making it much easier to just do it in a digital way. Within 1 hour, you already have your own organization because they know the interests of organizations. Organizations run hand in hand with the government. But in this country, when they see organizations, they see threat. I remember one of the organizations that was funding my organization to be able to do civic education was blocked from doing it from the year 2017. In one or another, I had to look for my own means to be able to do that. And when you call a youth to empower the youth, you must ask for something. They'll tell you, hey, afterwards, is there lunch or fare or something? They are always that way. Don't blame them. Mfuko ni mbaya nowadays. So the civil society, by the end of the day, the government still is the enemy of that side. Still, they feel threatened by the civil society because the civil society makes the youth more informed, as MajiMaji has put it out. The government, politicians, make good use of that youth every 5 years, after every 5 years. During the rest of the 4 years, they don't want this youth to be informed. They don't want that youth to be in a position where he or she makes much more better movement that you may not be able to use that youth 4 years later. They want that youth to remain in that same situation they found him or her. That's the problem. So that's why you find it is very difficult for government and civil society to join hands and work hard together.
So what's the way out? Because there's, majority of this audience is composed of young people. You speak to young people on a daily basis. What's the way out from where you sit?
When it comes to politics, the only way out is just mean election. People joining hands to vote in the right people. That is the only way out. You already know people. You already have one or two information about what these politicians do. You have one or two people within your area who is vying and has the interest of the people, and you know that person. Kindly, that is the right way to do. Just vote in the right people in politics, because when the right people get into politics, things change. You can see the East Africa, what is going on. Go to Rwanda. What's going on in there? People may call the president a dictator, but he's really changing that country in a bigger way. While in this country, we're dragging ourselves behind. Why?
Because of the wrong leaders.
Exactly.
All right.
That's the solution on it.
That is a solution. It's a tough hill to climb. Ladies and gentlemen in the audience, if anybody has got a question, now would be the time to ask. You can raise your hands. Hopefully we'll have someone with a microphone come to you. Is there anyone with a question up there? The gentleman over there behind, he's raised his hand. So we'll take one or two questions, get them answered, and then two more, and then we'll go into our final thoughts.
Good evening. My name is Calvin Rock. My question will be this. It will go specifically to Maji and to the panel. Feel free to answer as well. Now, the song Unbwogable was a rallying call back in the day, and undoubtedly it played a role in bringing the change. Currently, we all know what's going on in the country. We know who the bad leaders are. What has changed that there isn't any artist coming up with such a song that will rally people to really vote in a change that the youth want? Because I wouldn't want to say that creativity died. Songs are being made every day. So what is the difference between back then and now? The songs that we hear that are political really don't resonate with what we want. Thank you.
Anybody else with a question, they can have the microphone. As Calvin is asking, I'd ask the three of you, if you were an artist making a song today, what is the moment that you'd want to capture in that song? And as you answer Calvin's question, but let's listen to the question at the back.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
I'm glad to be here, but I would love to pose a question to Mr. MajiMaji. You look to be talking negatively about politicians. Okay, in general, the whole panel is talking negatively about politicians. And you also want to be politicians. So, what do you have in terms of capability, in terms of intelligence, in terms of the general knowledge about politicians that will make us now believe that the two of you are totally different from the ones we have had from the Independence Day? Thank you.
Let me pose a question about PLO Lumumba. I bet all of you know PLO Lumumba, right?
Yes.
Can you pose anything negative about him when it comes to what he does professionally?
Okay. Personally, I'm not very much interested about an individual.
Uh-huh.
But from the experience I have had personally about politicians, I just feel like saving a snake when driving to knock a politician. Sorry to say so, but in general terms, we have been having this list of promises against the pending promises versus the problem we meet on a daily basis, which they go unattended for years and years and years. If I may take you back, just back, we have been having problems which they have always been the tool to lure people to believe the incoming politicians are different from the previous one. But we end up falling on the same category that we have been cheated. We have been cheated. We have never had any problem completely solved, permanently solved, to say this generation of this year, they have never had a blackout. In Germany, they are celebrating now 63 years of not having blackout. Remember, they are just buying some of the energy from Russia. But in Kenya, we have been having problems of water. We have been having problems of electricity, the same problems. So the generation which comes now, after 10 years, they will have the water problem, electricity problem, medical problem. So I think it is much better if we concentrate with you as you now that you want to go into politics.
All right,
Thank
thanks.
you.
So Joy, you can answer that question.
According to what I've been doing in my community and even in Nairobi in general, that is enough to pose me in the good side of politics, not bad side. As I had said before, media contribute a lot. Media contribute a lot on how we think. You may find a good politician and a bad politician, but the bad politician will be brought in the news or in the media more times than the good politician. I can talk about the late Ken Okoth, Honorable Ken Okoth. The time I heard about the news that he had passed on, I just went blackout. And it was around 3 p.m. I was at work. I just told somebody goodbye and went home directly. Because I know what he had done for Kibra. For the first 5 years, and the first term and few years when he was serving in Kibra, around 2 years, I think. Before, he was a National Youth Council leader. And people were just seeing him as kiongozi wa mtaa, yeah? You see, the way unaonanga a youth, just a fellow youth who is leading the people or guiding the people, offering services for free. You may just judge that person according to community level. But Ken Okoth, the moment he was given the chance to lead Kibra, he showed us something that we never expected.
Okay, maybe I can explain. He has asked a very good question, a critical one. We need to understand the difference between a politician and a leader. Those are two different people. A politician and a leader. A politician is in the business of winning votes and getting into power, probably to secure his interest. A leader is interested in seeing his community move forward in any good way as possible. However, the challenge is that he or she, if it is public leadership, has to pass through a political process. Now, the other problem we have is understanding what politics is to our lives. Like in a country with a government, there's nothing that can work without politics. So then, I would like to encourage the youth or people in this panel why they should participate in politics, because every policy that Uhuru Kenyatta speaks to or Raila Amolo Odinga will speak to he has a wish, but they'll all pass through a process of public participation. Now, from public participation, if you don't attend and people who don't carry your aspirations attend, they will represent the policies that govern the country. So I think the other challenge that we have with the youth, especially mostly in an urban setup, they don't attend public participations. So once we start to do, we'll start to claim what we want and we'll start to direct policy. Now, this is what politics does and the government. They implement what was passed in public participation, that was turned into policy, and then they implement. So I would like to urge the youth and everybody in this panel that we should not take the public participation as just a mere exercise for people who follow the politician. Because if you don't, the views that were carried is what governs you today. And that's the problem we have until today, majorly in Africa, if I like to cite in Kenya. And I can even pose the same question. How many people in this panel attended a public participation at the ward level? Because you might find the complaint there was not even on employment. So I'm trying to urge every youth to participate without bias and to embrace politics as an everyday affair. It started a long time ago, so let's participate through media, through social media, through practically being there on every occasion. Another question has been asked about Germany celebrating 63 years of blackout. Please rewind the day. I'd like to take 10 thoughts of that so that we can challenge our government. There are people who don't have blackouts. There are blackouts everywhere nowadays. So I think congratulations to Germany, if that is what holds. We want that because manufacturing is affected by blackouts. So if you want to manufacture, you have to confirm that your energy process is okay and very affordable to the normal human being and their lives in all our institutions, etc., etc. Now, the other one is the song Unbwogable, and currently song released. Now, I would like to take us back to the first question he asked. One Love by Bob Marley was not sung to try and bring Jamaica together. He sang a song that he felt the world needs this, and then it happens that Jamaica is going through such a thing, then he sings it, the Prime Minister comes on stage, and there's no more anarchy in Jamaica. So the best songs are sung from your spirit, from what you relate to, and you can hope the world relates to it. Music or a song is just like a good book that you read, or a good writer, you want to read what he releases. But the writer writes what he sees and what he feels is written passionately and emotionally. So when the song is not emotional and passionate, it can never relate to you. And maybe that is what is going on currently in Kenya about songs and political songs. We sing to attract the politician, to pay for production and pay us. And when they don't, and then we make a lot of noise. But if we just sing a song that says, I'm tired of not being employed, we've seen people go on the streets with placards, I want a job, and it trends with no influencer. In fact, the influencer comes to that post and says, I want to post this first. There's a man or a lady at Koinange asking for a job with a placard on. I have a degree, I've been looking for a job for 10 years, I want one today, please employ me. Now that is how a song also relates. Be natural, be passionate, be real about yourself and hope it relates with the world. Not the world should relate to me because I've sung what I think the world thinks. The other one, which song? What song to sing? 30 days to an election. Maybe I don't give any artist any idea here. 30 reasons why not to vote. Or 30 reasons why to vote. That will be a hit song. I have 30 reasons to vote for Raila, 30 reasons to vote for Ruto, 30 reasons to vote for Wajakoya, or 30 reasons to vote for any other. Sorry for identifying the three. But any creative mind, think around those lines, or 3 reasons times 10 why to vote for Raila or Ruto or whoever, without being biased. Me, I know where my vote is, but it's not for this podium today.
Joy, I recognize that we're now running a bit short of time. People are getting a little cold, and we want to get guys inside to have some tea. So I'll leave the final thought from this discussion with you about the same question that I had asked about the kind of moment that we are in, and what perhaps should be capturing the attention, the purpose, the feeling, the spirit of young people across the country that perhaps you're just not seeing in music or not hearing in the public discourse?
Maybe let me talk about what I'm seeing. I see a lot of cynical laughter. Kenyans heal themselves a lot in that way. We turn everything into a joke, you know, because when it hurts so much, sometimes you don't know any other way to engage with it. But that should not be taken to mean that you're doing fine, yeah? So I think, you know, in this moment, first of all, I don't think that there's a song anybody is going to release now that is targeting this election that will have any impact. Timing is everything. It's too late now for that song, as far as I can tell, as an analyst of culture. I think that what Maji highlighted is absolutely spot on, that when you sing from a position of your pain, let me give you an example. I hope you all know the song Something Inside So Strong. Labi Sifra. It's been sung by many other people. What a lot of people don't know is that that song was inspired and was actually about his own experience of being a black gay man in London and how difficult it was for him to feel any degree of acceptance. But because it was so general in its message of exclusion in terms of the lyrics, it was captured for the South African freedom movement. And that thing about, you know, I will break your barriers. The barriers can be any barriers. And that's the thing about a powerful political song, a powerful protest song, is that it can be applied to any situation. We shall overcome. It could be anything. It could be literally anything. But look at how big the song We Shall Overcome is, regardless of what people are protesting. So the first thing I want to urge really is that we have to draw a line between songs that are either A, sponsored by politicians, or B, captured by politicians, in the sense that they draw an artist. And you could see Eric's disdain. You know, there's a song we are doing right now for somebody. He knows it's not music. So if we're talking about music as something that feeds the soul, it's going to have to come from somewhere else. And the question then will be, how does the artist articulate that pain, not just as laughter, because then a few people get confused and don't realize that it is pain. In other words, I'm saying, it's not just the message, it's also the medium that's going to matter. Yeah? It's also the timing that's going to matter. And right now we've run out of time for this election. There's no song that's going to make a difference.
All right, thank you very much for those insights. I know we said we're going to ask a couple of questions, but I can see people freezing in the audience, and there's one or two things that I have left to do this evening, and it has to do with the young ladies in the corner there. Guys, I hope you've learned something from this conversation. Now, I want for you guys to teach me and to teach the audience about something that's a very, very pertinent issue in our politics, in our culture, in the conversations we have, which is fake news, right? And so, Nyakirario, at the beginning of the discussion, you had talked about digital cards. Maybe you can walk us through what you've been able to find and show us what we need to be able to aim to look out for and what tools we can use before that. But you know, as you're doing that, what did you learn? What did you find surprising about this conversation?
Well, I found something interesting. Healthy obsession on politics with the youth. That's very interesting because, and what Maji mentioned about the youth not attending these meetings where these issues are discussed, it's common because even in my clique of friends, young people, they have a lot of voter apathy. They are not going to vote in this election, and they do not feel like they'll ever vote because of personal reasons. But this discussion has been very enlightening because I think after watching this, they might change their minds. Yeah.
Let's hope they watched.
Yeah, let's hope.
Yeah. So Nyakirario, walk us through what we've got on the screen. I know it's a bit far for some of the people in the back, but Nyakirario will walk us through.
So Zio gives you an option to create a fake post on either TikTok. I don't know if you can see my screen
Hopefully
clearly?
we can get the jib to just zoom in onto the screen
Okay.
so we can see what you're talking about. Yeah.
Okay. So it gives you an option to create either a TikTok post, an Instagram post, Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, and all other. So today we look at Twitter because chaotic. I'm joking. No, because chaotic, but Twitter. So what happens with Ziob? It gives you an option to create a profile image. So you can download a profile image of, let's say, if you want to accuse Africa Uncensored for saying that Germany is celebrating 63 years of without a
no
blackout.
blackout.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
you can download Africa Uncensored logo and upload it here where my cursor is. And then if there is an image you want to attach to your tweet, you can attach it here. The name of Africa Uncensored at the moment is Africa Uncensored, and its Twitter handle is @AF Uncensored. So all that you can type here. If you want to create a post that looks like it has had great traction, all this gives you that option. We looked at the number of tweets we wanted. We created a certain number of tweets we wanted, likes, Twitter for Android, the date, and all that. The Twitter name, their Twitter handle, and all that. When you come here, you can do all that. So you can use the keywords. You can type the entire tweet that has been shared as a digital card here, as an exact phrase, and all that.
So that's essentially to be able to establish whether a digital card is fake or not. It's been generated by someone.
By someone,
All
yes.
right. What else can you do, and maybe just explaining quickly, what else can you do to ensure that digital cards you don't fall victim to fake digital cards?
The first thing, before you even go to Twitter Advanced Search or Google Advanced Search, please go to the targeted media house or organization and check if they've posted anything like that.
These kinds of tools I know can be difficult to consume at one go, but we'll be posting lots of education about how to be able to figure out fake news, misinformation, and disinformation on our platforms, as well as during this show, during this segment. Thank you very much. Could we give Nyakirario and Tracy a round of applause? It was a very good first outing, I have to say. We'd like to do something a little special for all of our guests. We've had an artist. His name is Mr. Luis Aluso, who's been looking at us and taking down very copious notes about how we look. And so there are a couple of caricatures that I'd like to hand over now to our audience members, to our panelists rather, so that you can remember this show not just from the links, but you can hang it up somewhere and say, one day I was in town and I was interviewed. Thank you very much. A really good one. So if you want your caricature, this is a guy to go to. Luis will share with you all of his handles at a certain point in time. So Joy, let's start with you, Joy. This is a really good one. This is a pretty good one, Maji. This looks a lot better than the original, I'm guessing, eh? And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end of our very first special edition of The Big Picture. We really hope you enjoyed the screening of Kura as well, the discussion about music and politics. I hope for anybody who's in the audience who didn't know about Unbwogable, the story of Unbwogable, and the difference between a song of political praise and a political song, you know something today. You can share that episode and coming episodes that will be on our socials, and follow us right now on AF Uncensored on Twitter and Africa Uncensored on all of our other socials, including Instagram. Thank you very much. My name is John Alan Namu. This is the end of our stream. To everybody who's been watching us on YouTube and Facebook, asanteni. Keep sharing, keep watching, and hopefully over the next couple of weeks and months, we'll have big picture conversations that change our country one conversation at a time. Asanteni to all of you. Give yourselves a round of applause. And to the team behind Kura, I just like to say this personally as the person who leads Africa Uncensored. I am eternally grateful to the work that you guys do every day. Not just the team who does Kura, but all of the members of Africa Uncensored. Thank you so much for the work that you do on a daily basis. It's so important. We'll get there eventually. We are the little engine that could. And with this community that's supporting us, I'm sure we're going to be able to get to where we want to be. Asanteni sana. Thank you very much. Have a great evening.